Welcome back. Breaking news on Capitol Hill. Moments ago, I'm holding the letter that just came out. It has signatures of 6 different Democratic committee chairs, and they're pushing Bill Barr, demanding he submit Mueller's full report, no exceptions, to Congress by a deadline of April 2nd. This is fast movement on the story that's been unfolding ever since Mueller formally finished his probe on Friday. I'm joined by a senator with a big view and a big role in this, Senator Cory Booker of New Jersey, for his first interview since the release of Barr's now quite well-known 4-page set of highlights, according to him, of the Mueller report. Senator Booker is a member of the Judiciary Committee. He is also running for president. He even questioned Mr. Barr during those confirmation hearings. Senator, thanks for joining us on this big night.
It's good to have you. You have been doing a lot of hours and probably a little sleep.
That's true. Does that mean you're watching TV while you're also out on the trail?
I have had you on the background of many a room that I've been in.
So much to talk about, but let's start here. Mueller finished Friday.
Yes.
Barr took charge of this process and at least the public perception of it over the weekend. This would look to be what your colleagues in the House are calling for, breaking news, these 6 signatures saying, give us the Mueller report by April 2nd or else. Is this the right call? What else needs to happen in your view?
So first of all, there's a chorus of people that have been calling for this. Even people from more less partisan, independent backgrounds are saying this is something that should be released to the American public. Consider about resources and money, and just for the sanctity of the judicial system. There's a lot of suspect right now to show that this process was fair and transparent. This is a really important step in that process, and there's a lot of us, myself included, who don't want to draw conclusions yet until we've actually seen and read the report.
Does it trouble you that Barr went through a 22-month investigative product over the weekend and released quotes without any of them being a full sentence?
I'm deeply troubled by Barr himself. One of the reasons I voted against him. I mean, he came out before he even saw the Mueller report with conclusions about this investigation, which I think taints him. He should have recused himself, in my opinion. So I have a lot of problems with Barr seeming to try to be a filter for a report that allow us in Congress, who ultimately, according to the Constitution, should be making some of these big decisions.
You say this is the congressional call. This was what Eric Holder was saying, too. And I think a lot of folks have been following this and waiting to see what Mueller did. And there wasn't a lot of thought about, well, who would the ultimate umpire be? Now we seem to be in this huge debate where Barr says he's the umpire. We just heard from the president's lawyer who came on the beat. I'm glad he did. He has a very different view, which is the AG should be the umpire. Let me play for you what Eric Holder was telling us tonight, that Jay Sekulow was, I think it's fair to say, I try to be fair, somewhat exercised over.
Okay.
Is that fair, Senator?
I think that's very fair.
Somewhat exercised.
Yes.
This was what the Attorney General from the Obama administration said. Take a look.
He's certainly departing from those precedents, and I would say he's acting in a way that's inconsistent with the best practice. It would seem to me that having received the information in the way that he did from Bob Mueller, that Attorney General Barr should have taken that information and then, packaged it in the appropriate form and sent it to the House for consideration.
Is Barr basically trying to do your job, the Congress's job, for you?
Again, I have a lot of suspicion about Barr, who's already spoken to these issues before he even saw the report. So, again, I worry about that filter. And secondly, I think Barr has characterized something in a piece of paper that almost seemed to be handing the president talking points, and did a job that we should be able to do as Congress by looking at this report. So again,
looking at your view as a talented and distinguished attorney, not just also a senator and a presidential candidate, was this letter, is it too early to say, or do you think this letter was bad lawyering, that it was more PR than an investigative product?
I think the letter came from somebody who was already suspect that should have recused himself. Number two is he's drawing conclusions with no evidence whatsoever. He's not, how did he come to these conclusions? How did he, what facts is he basing his conclusions on? These really raise a whole lot more questions than it actually does answer. And it should be turned over to the public and to representatives of the public to begin to go through. And I'm very much looking forward to having come before the Judiciary Committee Robert Mueller. I think he should sit before the Judiciary Committee in the Senate, and he should go as well as to the House.
So that's interesting. Even if you get the full Mueller report, which this new letter as of 6:30 p.m. Eastern is the House chairs demanding it and putting forward a process.
Right.
You're saying Mueller should still testify under oath. Should that be in public?
I absolutely believe it should. The aspects, we've done this before. There are aspects that should be in public, and then clearly there might be some things that should be in private. But this is not an end in any way to what's going on. You mentioned one of Donald Trump's lawyers. Well, his private lawyer has been indicted, and so has his campaign manager and his deputy campaign manager. Even his son was exposed for lies, saying that we didn't meet with people from Russia when it turns out he did. There is a lot going on here, and Mueller has spent months and months and millions of dollars going through this. This is a part of a longer process that's going to be investigated by Congress, understandably so, as well as the Southern District. We see investigations going on literally from coast to coast.
Now, is that just on the remaining criminal questions, including whatever happened in New York, and obstruction, as you put it, which is Congress's ambit, or do you see collusion as still an open question?
Well, again, what legal term are we using here for collusion, and what exactly went on? And this is, again, why there are fact patterns and evidence in that report that should be presented to Congress for us to draw our own conclusions.
Well, let me press you on that, because I think in the case of the Mueller probe, Bob Mueller did not find a chargeable collusion conspiracy. Well, that much we know. And let's look at Senator Booker. I don't know if you'll get like Jay Sekulow on me. I don't know. We'll see what happens. For a guy on a good news day, he had his feelings.
Yes.
But I want to press you on this, sir. Here's how you described it as recently as 2017. Take a look.
Please.
Look, we're at a point in American history where we're seeing a lot of dots that seem to be directing us towards a real problem and potential collusion, because there continues to seem to be smoke that might result in an actual fire. In other words, real collusion going on between us and the Soviet Union.
Real collusion going on.
First of all, besides the fact that I did a flashback there and called it the Soviet Union, not Russia, I'm glad you just were going to gloss over that and give me a pass.
Well, real collusion going on, you said. Do you now have to revise that to say not chargeable collusion?
Again, when I have an attorney general who, in my opinion, is suspect, filtering a report that I have not seen, I'm not willing to conclude anything yet based upon a letter that he wrote.
So let's ask about it.
Press me on that.
But Bob Mueller didn't charge anyone for conspiracy, collusion on the election.
Right.
So you know that at the criminal level, Bob Mueller's now done. He's not doing the probe anymore.
Bob Mueller is a soldier that knows that his department has said a sitting president cannot be charged, cannot be indicted. Mm-hmm. And so, again, I think that this is an issue for Congress. Let's look at the fact pattern. Let's look at the report and come to our own conclusion.
Okay, so let me ask you it this way, and then I'm going to move on.
Yes.
One more. If somebody then says, well, Senator Booker is advocating Congress do over Bob Mueller's collusion probe, what is your response to that?
No, my response to that is I'm not going to make any conclusions until I've read the report. Not at all. I think that we should read the report. Congress should have access to it. I think it should be made public before we draw any conclusions, especially those that are being filtered through an attorney general who had written before he even saw the report about issues of collusion.
Now I'm going to ask you the same question I asked the president's lawyer tonight, and I think we always learn more when we hear from everyone.
Yes.
The question I posed to him was, when Bob Mueller says Donald Trump was not exonerated of the crime of obstruction, what does that mean?
Again, I haven't read the report, so I cannot say exactly.
Is it bad for Donald Trump?
I think that for him not to exonerate him, it really should raise a lot of concern for a lot of people. And for a president of the United States to behave like he did, to even tell us that he's firing an FBI director because of the Russia investment, all of this points to possible behavior that could possibly be considered obstruction.
Interesting. And that's, as you've been saying throughout this interview and from before today, to be fair, that's for Congress to bear down on. I mean, Attorney General Holder telling us tonight he views this as the beginning of that. And I think that's true regardless of whether one looks at a Mueller law or a Ken Starr law. The Constitution gives Congress that oversight. I want to turn to another issue that you have worked on.
Can I just,
please.
It's just really important that we, as much as we can, separate politics out of this. There are a lot of people who have been hurt by Trump, by his rhetoric, by his policies, that want to drive him from office. But this is, I think, a sacred constitutional moment for us, where we should be examining the president on the accusations that have been made, that the reason why we founded this report was very serious, and we should look, was there obstruction, was there collusion, based upon the facts and the evidence. And so I just think that as much as it's hard to have a conversation in this town without people talking about politics, and we've seen the absurdities under with Secretary Clinton, for example, of which the Republicans in Congress were behaving, whether Benghazi hearings, email hearings, that were well beyond the pale. But in this one, in my conversations with other Judiciary Committee members, there seems to be a sobered examination of what is really going on here, and do we have at the highest levels of our country someone who already has seen a lot of people around them, personal lawyer, campaign staff, senior foreign policy advisor, be indicted for serious crimes. We have not seen this level of corruption going on around an individual president for decades and decades, probably around the time that you and I were born. And so this is very serious, especially because what we do know, as Attorney General former Attorney General reiterated on the show, an ongoing attacks on our democracy by Russia, ongoing attacks, as we're going into another election.
Before I lose you, I do want to turn to a couple other issues. This one obviously super important.
Yes.
But you've done a lot of work on criminal justice reform.
Yes.
And in Barr's hearings, you had an exchange that was important about incarceration, about the underlying racial inequities, and his defense that the tough on crime agenda he led in the old days was important to reducing crime, he said. Take a look.
My motivation was to provide safety in these neighborhoods. The crime rate has gone down. The drug penalties, as I said, very high and draconian, and in some cases that might have been necessary, but I supported revisiting the penalty structure.
Was that an acceptable defense to you?
No, some cases that would have been necessary. We have declared war on the American people. War on drugs is the war on American people. Federal prison population since 1980 alone has gone up 800%, disproportionately poor, addicted, mentally ill, and overwhelmingly minority. No difference between blacks and whites for using marijuana, dealing marijuana, but African Americans are almost 4 times more likely to be charged for that. And don't think this is not a big thing. 2017 alone, there were more marijuana possession charges than all violent crime charges in total. What has happened in America since 1980, and what he's talking about, what he's done, has been perhaps one of the most devastating things, cancer on the soul of our country. Why? Well, while our infrastructure crumbled, we were building a new jail or prison every 10 days from the time I was in law school to the time I was mayor of Newark. We've had Villanova report that we'd have 20% less poverty in America if our incarceration rates were the same as our industrial peers. And when it comes to racial inequities in this country, there's a reason why Michelle Alexander called it the new Jim Crow, because it has so devastated black and brown communities that we have more black men in prison today than all the slaves in 1865.
It's remarkable. Before I let you go then, in a word or a sentence,
yes,
what is the issue, policy or priority that separates you most from other Democrats in this presidential field right now?
I have a record for bringing people together to solve the toughest problems, whether mayor of the city of Newark or passing criminal justice reform. For me, this is a moment in America where we have persistent injustice, and the way to solve that, especially in the Democratic Party, not just talking about who we're against or what we're against, we've got to start talking about what we're for, not just beating Republicans. Our party needs to be defined as having the ability to unite Americans to solve persistent injustice. That's why I have a call to create what King called the more beloved community. We really need to fight to do that, and that's really my purpose for running.
Senator Cory Booker, we've spoken about some of these issues before. It's your first time on the beat as a presidential candidate. I hope we have you back.
I hope that, I'm a little disappointed you can give me one lyric from one. I mean, come on, not even Don't Believe the Hype, for crying out loud. After that last interview you had with Trump's lawyer. Don't believe the hype.
Are you applying Chuck D to Jay Sekulow?
I am exactly doing that. I'm sorry, I had to go there.
Well, now, you know, it's a serious news day.
It's a serious news day.
Is someone
sometimes when you have Public Enemy who seriously was talking about fighting the power before.
Fight the power that be. You brought it up. Is there a member of the Trump administration that most reminds you of Flavor Flav?
The fact that this is a president that's often having his policy defined by pop icons and the like is probably says it all.
Says it all.
It probably says it all.
Senator Booker, bringing up the Public Enemy and get into a lot of issues. I appreciate you coming on the show.
I appreciate you very much. Look forward to getting back on.
Thank you. Hey, I'm Ari Melber from MSNBC. You can see more of our videos right here, or better yet, subscribe to our YouTube channel below. You could have been anywhere in the world, but you're here with us. and we appreciate that.